Oh, you've got crazy stories, Elijah. So hit the record button. We're going to get this thing started. And so we have Elijah Medge on today's call. And so Elijah, when I think of your name, okay, you know what, the memory that comes up, see if you know, like what would I think about when I think Elijah Medge?
Socially awkward. Just, yeah.
I think of your wedding. It was one of the
Oh,
best weddings I've ever been. I mean, it was interesting. I mean, I don't know if you got this idea. This is way off subject, but I don't know if you got the idea from all the different NatCons you've been to, but you know, as the crowd is getting ready to introduce the wedding party, everybody was introduced and had their own song that they came up to. The bridesmaids, the groomsmen. Was that sort of a you got the idea from like all the
no, I
different
had zero participation in the planning, but apparently that's a Persian custom. My wife's Persian, so that's if you ever go to another Persian wedding, it's pretty customary for that. And yeah, it's massive and over the top, and it's just the culture. So
Well, it was awesome. I mean, I think it took around 40 minutes until we finally got to the
yeah,
bride and groom, and I'm like, man, what a spectacle that was! What a beautiful wedding. I'll never
I
forget that.
appreciate that.
Somewhere up in the valley, I can't remember, like way out there,
Yeah, Simi Valley,
Simi Valley.
Hummingbird Ranch Nest.
Yeah.
Garrett was there.
Oh yeah, Gareth was there. I remember even driving home. I'm like, yeah, I got enough miles in my charge to get home. And your wedding was the closest I ever came to running out of
I
battery.
had range anxiety. Sorry
I,
about that.
I I had to turn my AC off, turn the music off. I'm like, I got to stretch this out as long as I can, and had 2 miles left on my car before I had to plug it back in. But anyway, so this is Elijah Medge. If you give us an introduction, I mean, obviously people see your name when we see like the top owners in the company. Your name is always up there. Top 10 or for sure top 15. So give us your story. You've been around for a minute, and a lot of these guys are retail owners. So what can you tell us about Elijah Medge?
Sure. Yeah, so I'm 2 years ago, I was number 11. If I was number 10, I probably would have been on this call 2 years ago, but just missed it. I think I'm number 11 again right now, so really hoping to not to miss the trip again. But yeah, so my name's Elijah. I actually started almost about 20 years ago in Miami in Julie Edmonds' office. Originally from Russia, came here as a refugee. When I was 7 years old, my family, we lived in Alabama. We didn't have any family or knew anybody. We didn't have the language down, so lived there for a little bit. Then moved down to South Florida. Went to Florida State for college, and started in the field right after school. I identify as an introvert, over the top introvert. I need to constantly be recharging my social battery. So it's a very contrarian of me to be in this business. But I saw my father do well in business and put a lot of hours in the time and energy, very stoic and even keeled, and that was always a good role model for me. So I wanted to do well in business growing up in South Florida, just kind of like LA. You see the affluence, the wealth, the money, the Lambos, the Bentleys, the $5 million condos. So I was aware of what a good life looked like. We didn't really have that growing up, but I wanted to be in a good vehicle that can get me there. And I realized running a business has the highest upside, but I also knew that I had a lot of limitations from a communication standpoint, from being comfort zone, being shy and whatnot. So I pursued this. When I got into business, I realized how difficult it was going to be for me. I took the challenge on because I knew that I was going to have to beat a lot of my demons and figure it out if I was going to be successful. So I'm started in the field of Miami. I moved to Nashville in 2007 when the recession hit. Ran an office on Quill. I remember flying out to Jamie's office when he was number one on Quill and just being really impressed by the size of his office and how smooth everything was running. And it was really inspirational. And then about 8 years later, I came out to LA to chase a girl, which is now my wife, that, the wedding Jamie attended. Was on T-Mobile for about 5 years right before COVID hit. And then that program got dismantled, took on AT&T B2B, was the last man standing on that. And, we've been bouncing back and growing that program. I think we have almost 8 offices now. So not quite the retail scope yet, but we're lean and mean and we're aggressive. So we'll get there. That's kind of my story in a nutshell.
Hmm. I've always known you're from Russia. I didn't realize you were a refugee. Was that, I mean, I'm trying to go back in my memory. Is that when the Soviet Union was
Yeah,
coming?
so we had our name on the list. We came on asylum. So before the USSR broke up in 91, we were kind of like petitioning to try to escape and get out. And we finally got the green light. We were sponsored by a federation.
Hmm.
here in the US, and they helped us kind of like assimilate a little bit and then, kind of have to fend for ourselves. Not a big Russian population in Birmingham, Alabama, so had to
Probably
figure
not.
things out pretty quickly.
And so, and you guys didn't speak any English, I
Yeah.
assume? Wow.
I knew elephant, apple, and fish. Those are my three words. And elephant, I was pretty impressed looking back on it because a lot of syllables there.
Huh. And if you ever heard Bobby Parks' uh, immigration story, but he came over here when he was around 5, and his only exposure to the English language was watching Looney Tunes. So by
Nice.
the time he went to kindergarten, all he could say were things like "abadia, abadia, abadia." That's all, folks. He's talking like that in kindergarten. So I
I
imagine, you
had a lot of good stories from that guy.
yeah. Um, so you saw your parents like literally start over, like start from nothing.
Yeah, I was talking to my therapist about this the other day. Like, I just couldn't imagine how, just in your like late 20s, early 30s, just completely moving to a different country, no family, no support, no nothing, raising a family. Like, looking back on it, it just seems so courageous and so daring. And, you know, yeah, they wanted my brother and I to have a better life. So, I really appreciate that. And, I think a lot of it goes back to like when I was in the field and feeling sorry for myself. I always kind of remembered the, like, there's people that actually have to go through real challenges versus just hearing someone say they don't want your internet.
Hmm,
So puts things in perspective.
hmm, totally. That's deep appreciation for the country and your family for sure for having, like you said, courageous to do that. I'm like, I can't even imagine what that would be like. But I would assume if my children saw that, they would just like, Dad, you're like a superhero, man.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's
And
one thing for
they were
them.
always, yeah, and they just never made a big deal of it. They just made things happen. And I think they were also grateful for the opportunity to be in, I think our business has a lot of immigrants for a reason. I think we appreciate opportunities more. We take less for granted. We don't feel as
Mhm,
entitled. So,
mhm. Yeah, fantastic. Well, the question I want to tee you up on in business, I asked you, and Elijah, like, what do you think you're like really good at, like D4 at? And your answer was very intriguing to me. I'm going to read it. I think I'm good at painting a picture and making things make sense to people and out logicking, not a real word, but I like it. It's an Elijah word, out logicking people's emotions. So I thought that's interesting. So I wouldn't even mind seeing a little role play take place here if possible, but just walk us through that. What do you mean? How do you out logic somebody's emotions with your ability to paint the picture?
um, so I have this reputation. They turn my last name into a verb. They said, there's like it goes around that, oh, he just medged somebody. He's gonna go medge him. I need you to medge somebody. And it's in my organization. I don't know how it started. I didn't like it originally, but then I just kind of went with it. But yeah, look, at the end of the day, I think if someone has a fairly good understanding of what a good life looks like for them, and there's enough of a respect where people will listen to you and at least hear you out. If you give them enough logic and you have enough data points and statistics and just the facts, it should hopefully trump anything that they feel. Now with that being said, I think I acknowledge people's feelings, I empathize, I relate, and just the feelings make sense. But I think it's something Gary, once says, like, feelings aren't good or bad, they just are. But if there's enough logic about, why to continue doing something and push forward, then you should theoretically do it. So I think over time, I've just gotten good at making people realize, the purpose of something, the purpose of certain habits, behaviors, just resilience, and mainly commitment. I think if someone commits, I think I've gotten good at getting people to commit to the process. I think a big part of that comes from a lot of clarity. I try to be very clear on what my intention is, what the nature of my business. We're in the entrepreneurial development business, and that's what I intend to do. I intend to develop entrepreneurs. I'm not here to make you happy. I'm here to create conditions for you to win. I'm here to expose you to certain levels of struggle, which are necessary because, we're building out neurological pathways through this development process for you to handle adversity, which you're going to need when you're on your own. Because I just tell you, like, if you're in my business, and then, over the next 40 years, if you're somehow in some capacity an entrepreneur, 2% of that time is going to be, around me kind of holding your hand and guiding you. The rest of the time, you're going to be fully autonomous. So you need to go through certain processes to really develop the thick skin, the resilience and whatnot. And I think I say it in a way where it makes sense to people. Um, and then I really, I think I've gotten good at making the business itself seem very logical. I forgot who said it, but like, there's a understanding of the fact that, the biggest fleet of cars in the world the biggest fleet of cars is tethered to Uber, but Uber doesn't have any vehicles. The biggest, hospitality company in the world is Airbnb, but they don't have any, actual real estate. The biggest, content providers, Meta, but they don't actually have a lot of their own content. So, the future of business is platform businesses. So I try to share with my people that, look, the future, we're a platform business. We're going to be the biggest organization that does sales that doesn't actually have any products to sell internally. So, if you could be a barnacle on the ship and capitalize on the long-term potential, then there's a really big payoff. And just, I'm good at, I think, explaining the economics to people. When supply exceeds demand, it's a surplus. When demand exceeds supply, it's a shortage. So there's a shortage of us. So, we have value, we have leverage. So anyways, so I just go through concepts with people early enough where things click enough. I think that if they're experiencing certain emotions, the logic that I've instilled in them should override, how they feel.
It's it's a unique way of explaining the business. I've never quite heard it framed like that. I mean, obviously I've heard, Uber and Airbnb. I mean, those are two interesting companies that they're the largest in their industry, yet they have no assets. It's like, how are you the largest, car company, so yeah, that's interesting. I'm curious what exactly you get them to commit to. Like, are they committing to a time frame? Are they committing to a goal? Like, what's a new person committing to in your business?
Yeah, so I'm mainly committing to development of skills and more specifically soft skills. Another thing I try to explain to people, especially with how things are moving, most positions, especially technical skills, are going to be eradicated over the next 10, 20 years. Just through robotics, AI, like surgeons aren't going to be around. Like, 7 years, 10 years from now, would you rather have human hands or nanobots, that have to follow an algorithm in your body? Same thing with chefs. Like, if we can standardize how a meal is cooked through robotics and cut the cost, you're going to do that. So a lot of technical accounting, finance, all these positions, a lot of things are going to get replaced, and those require technical skills that typically you go to college and pay a lot of money to learn. So what's going to stick around is soft skills. And soft skill development is crucial. And, the best leaders in any industry, they just have these soft skills where they're able to communicate, they're able to influence effectively, they're able to be solution oriented, maintain their temperament when things don't go their way. So what I try to have people commit, especially people that are starting their careers, is just commit to focusing on developing soft skills that are extremely transferable, because ultimately you have two options in your career. You can either stay entry level, ground floor forever, you can grow. Now, if you're growing, like if you ascend in your position, that means you're taking on responsibility of, supervising, coaching, developing. Like, people are reporting to you, which means that you have to have certain skills of working with those people. So, why not take a chance on our business where you can get that practice and get that experience and get the feedback and guidance you need to perfect that. Now, if you want to continue in this path, I encourage you to do it. It's a really good place to be, right? Because our business, it's safe. Like I said, there's high demand and whatnot. And worst case scenario, you can move on and do something else later once those soft skills have been developed. So the commitment to soft skills, I think, is the biggest value proposition of, being on my team.
Again, I mean, I applaud you for just your great, unique explanation, right? I can see why you're doing so well. Like, everything you're saying makes a lot of sense. You're out logicking me right now here, Elijah. That's what's happening, right?
Yeah.
That's great. I mean, I see people writing things down, so I think we're stealing some of your thunder here. This is awesome stuff. One more question, then I'm going to open this up here. I'm curious what messaging you're giving your people right now, whether your top leaders in your office, your owners? Like, what's on your mind that you're sharing with your top players right now?
Um, Mainly that, in terms of, I want them to become experience junkies and just harness as many like experience as possible. And just to be able to transition to, kind of like you said, what are you D4? Like I want them to get to D4. So just getting as many experiences, dealing with as many different challenges possible. Like, I think I spoke about with you a few months ago where, we had some changes on the campaign and you're like, great. And I'm like, I love that perspective. And that's what I'm trying to instill into my people. Like if you're dealing with adversity, if you're dealing with certain obstacles, that's great. As assuming that you do want to have a good life and you want to be, an elite player in the entrepreneurial game. Like if you look at the stats, I think like 5.6% of people in America run businesses. When you look specifically at millennials, it's around 2%. So 90% of people say they want to be their own boss. Only 2% of people are actually doing it. So the gap basically communicates back that people, lack discipline, they procrastinate, they don't follow through. So if you want to be at the top of your game, you have to be extremely agile and pivot when things come at you. So if you're dealing with any kind of adversity with your people, with certain scenarios that you're unfamiliar with, like good, embrace it, deal with it, learn how to handle it, and be a good example for your people because that's what's going to essentially get, work yourself out of those challenges. If you're a good example and you can instill that into your people, you're going to have an organization of very solution oriented people that love the challenge. So that's the biggest thing, just be an experience junkie.
That's great, Elijah. I like the school that you're building. I think it's fantastic. Again, if one of my kids signed up in your company and they're regurgitating all the things that you're saying to me, I'm like, yeah, you want to stick around there. You're going to learn something here. So it's good
So
stuff, Elijah.
there's a really good concept before questions. I don't know if you guys ever heard of Ikigai. Have you heard of that? It's a Japanese concept. I love it. And I talk about it to my people because it's something that I think over the years I've developed. So let me show, I can't share my screen. So Ikigai, it's a Japanese concept. It has 4 components. And that's ultimately like when you try to find your purpose, it has to fit all 4. It's developing something that you love, something that the world needs, something that you can get paid for, and something that you're good at. So obviously it's something you can find like coming out of college because you're probably not good at anything. You can't really love something because you're not good at anything yet. But it's over time something that develops and grows. So it's a really good concept. And I talk about it to my people as far as, if they're confused, if they're uncertain about what the trajectory, where it goes, like, create that ikigai through just developing that mastery at, every step, in every part of our business, whether it's like the influence, leadership, the just the business acumen or whatever. So anyways,
It's great.
check it out.
It's great. I just turned the ability to share screen on for
Oh,
another time if you'd like, or you can share that, whatever you want.
here you go. You guys can screenshot it. It's really cool. It's just a concept that really made me kind of think about things differently because it's not, it's multifaceted and it fits every bucket. So it makes you feel very fulfilled.
Hmm. I've seen that before. I'm not sure where. All right. Any questions here for Mr. Medge?
I've watched this part of all your other videos and I'm like, I hope they ask a question. It's okay.
Hi, Elijah. How are you?
Oh, hey, Alice.
Good. I have a quick question. So I only heard the part you get people to commit for getting the skill set, and then Jeff was talking about me the same similar idea. How would that conversation go? Let's say they have different career path they want to have in their mind, but what would the like measurement of their soft skill set then when they
Yeah,
achieve?
I think part of it, I would encourage everyone to, like, I'm in this CEO forum group called Vistage, and we have a meeting the second Wednesday of every single month. And it's me and 15 other CEOs of completely diverse industries and businesses. And some of these guys are running like $300 million companies. They're super successful. I'm like the baby in the group, and I'm just like soaking up knowledge and learning. But the point I'm trying to make is when you really learn about all different types of businesses, the one thing that you realize is every single business is exactly the same. So whatever someone's trajectory, someone's path is, it doesn't really matter. It's all the same skills. Like when you read any autobiography of successful entrepreneurs, you can extract enough common denominators to realize that the industry wasn't that relevant. It was more about the person and how they handle adversity, how they work with people, how they pivoted, and how they, kept going and things of that nature. So I think it's important that you share a lot of that messaging preemptively with your people because, people can have an easy out. Like we sell AT&T, it's easy for someone to say, I'm not passionate about internet. And I'm like, yeah, no shit. Who is? That'd be weird if you were, right? But it has nothing to do with internet. The client is just a vehicle to a destination. So I go into it with that assumption that you're probably, when you were 7 years old, you probably didn't put in your first grade, whatever goals or dreams that I want to one day run an outsourced direct marketing and sales company. I get that. You probably just want to have a good life and you're just looking for a good vehicle that will get you there. So, when you think about the vehicle, what's safe, what's low risk, what has high margins, what's a well-supported ecosystem. Well, I think, our business offers that. So it doesn't really matter what you want to do. If you want to attain a certain level of wealth and create a certain quality of life and be seen as a valuable asset to an organization, the skills that any organization look for are pretty much the same. So it doesn't matter.
It's interesting, as my kids are aging, right? So I just did a quick search here, soft skills versus hard skills. Because as my children are like, Dad, I think, like my son said to me the other day, I think I want to be an architect. And so this conversation comes up like, well, are they hard skills or are they soft skills? And then if you look at this Indeed, right, Indeed just puts together this nice little diagram here. And it's like, yeah, look, all these hard skills, eventually AI is going to take basically every so if you're gravitating to hard skills, I mean, computers are going to run them all. And
Yeah.
it's the soft skills that the computers just aren't going to pick up. So yeah, it's just a smart way. Again, what I like about Elijah, he's just got a very intelligent way of explaining his business. So yeah, don't be shy to do a little research on hard skills versus soft skills. I think that's brilliant, Elijah. And again, as you will find out as your kids age, it's going to become super important that they gravitate to certain industries that'll be rewarded for their hard work.
Well, it's funny you say that. I wanted to be an architect actually, and I did 4 years of drafting like AutoCAD and I studied the software and that was 20 years ago. All of that's obsolete by now. So but I definitely learned patience through those courses and that, I'm gonna need that one forever.
Yeah.
Elijah, I have a question for you, brother. I know you didn't like the New Orleans weather last week, but
It was hot.
So you talk about soft skill and transferable skills and you have 8 owners right now under you. So how good were you transferring those skill sets to them, speaking the same logic just like you, and how long, what are the trainings that you did with them to make sure they do the same thing, or your goal was to more no, they got to develop their own identity?
Well, I think they all have their own identity. And to be honest, I don't know. I had a lot of intimate conversation and I remember having a lot of them having certain breaking points and things of that nature where they just didn't feel like they have any more gas in the tank. And I think those conversations where I just had to shed light and shift their perspective is why they're still around. Hopefully that, create enough, maybe the core memories from those conversations create enough anchor points for them to kind of regurgitate to their people. Do they have the conviction? Is it as authentic and genuine as how it comes from me? I'm not sure. But I don't tell anyone that they have to be like me. I'm not building clones here, but I do want people to kind of embrace my perspective. If they want to have long-term success, because I think it's kind of necessary. Like you have to be rooted in a certain level of logic for you to continue on a path that's, very challenging. But I have heard them speak the way I'm like, oh, you got that for me. That's a good little nugget. I'm glad that that clicked with you. So I do hear them speak, say it. It always sounds a little weird though, because I'm like, I said that to you once and now you're saying it. So, but I am proud and it is humbling.
Thank you, bro.
Yeah.
Hey, Elijah, You mentioned, and I wrote it down, so if I'm paraphrasing, but you said we're the biggest platform business, and you mentioned Uber and Airbnb and stuff like that. I've heard other people describe it as our. They said we don't have a product, but I've heard other people describe it as our product is our people. Where do you see like the difference, or
Well, yeah,
is it?
so I mean, holistically as an organization, that's what we're gonna say. Our customers are our people. Like when I'm thinking about who am I serving, who do I want to take care of, who do I want to satisfy, it's obviously my staff. I think the way the market would look at us, like they don't care about people, they just care about the bottom line and the numbers. When they look at our business, if there's like a venture capitalist or a private equity firm that's looking to, fund us and whatnot, they're just gonna look at, hey, this company, they don't have anything tangible goods. That's why their margins are so high. Like I don't have to buy, like we're not driving around with routers in our trunks that we buy and have to redistribute, right? So I think from a market standpoint, I don't think, Wall Street would see us, like they don't care about that, like the goodness. They just care about, hey, this company, very low margins, very, very mobile, the size and scope, they can grow, they can scale, they can move, and they could sell anything. And, they're trying to grow to be the largest, in-person sales organization without actually having any tangible products to sell. So I think it depends on who's observing us.
Yeah, that makes sense. Thank you.
Elijah, any good books or sources to help kind of increase logic or have like just different paradigms on how to approach different situations?
Probably. I don't know if you ever read 0 to 1 by Peter Thiel, How to Build a Monopoly.
No.
Looking at that one right now. That's a good one. Just, I think he has good, interesting thoughts about business. There's a good book called The Wealth Elite. And it just has a lot of like stats and data points on like ultra high net worth individuals and what the common denominators are. Because once again, if you look at the most successful people, like most
Sorry,
of
I was writing the first one down. So 0 to 1. What was the second one?
0 to 1 by Peter Thiel. He's a little crazy, ultra conservative, but
What was the second one?
The Wealth Elite.
The Wealth Elite.
Yeah, it's a big
And
one.
that's just like a lot of stats around wealthy
Yeah,
people.
the groundbreaking study of the psychology of the super rich. So, so it's already been done. But yeah, but I think also more than anything, I think really immersing myself in an environment of entrepreneurs outside of our business has really helped kind of solidify my commitment to, because sometimes you think, hey, am I drinking the Kool-Aid a little too much? Is this just like, the agenda? And then you zoom out and you realize, no, hold on, every business deals with turnover issues. Every business deals with like, a toxic workplace, and in California, we're all getting sued left and right. So it's just business, it's just enterprise, and you just kind of get addicted to it and get excited to build and problem solve and
if you're kind of speaking about logic, do you ever go into like, or teach you guys like logic fallacies? Because that's why I find people trip up. They think they're being reasonable, but it's like you're actually not. And then try to that is a weird kind of.
I think there's a part of me that I just like debating. So I do try to prove people wrong, and I do get a little bit of rush out of it. And I'm sure I come off super condescending and like an a-hole when I do it. And it's not intentional, but I'm super competitive. So if I can win this argument and make you see it my way, then as long as it doesn't, hurt the relationship. But yes, I do try to show the fallacy in people's thinking. There's a really good word, by the way, I've taught my guys. It's called apophenia. It's the psychological phenomenon where we try to cluster things together and find patterns.
Mhm.
And I try to teach my guys to do not do that, because whenever they hit a roadblock, like I just can't do this anymore because all of these issues, what I've tried to do, and I do this internally myself, I have to force myself to do this, is I isolate every single situation, because they're not all the same. It just sounds like the same. Oh, it's just campaign issues. Well, this issue is completely different from this one, completely different from this one. When you start clustering together, and your brain wants to cluster because that's how we preserve our brain, I teach my guys to, isolate them and let's work one at a time. Otherwise, you're going to be too overwhelmed to even want to handle anything.
So is someone's like, hey, I'm just dealing with a lot, or man, there's a lot going on. Is that you're kind
Yes,
of
hey,
curious?
let's talk about the top
break
three
down what a
things.
lot is. It's actually 4 different problems, and each problem's not actually that much. If you
Yeah, so if they've heard me talk about it, say, all right, cool, so apophenia's coming on, so let's fight that. Let's talk about what are the top 3 things you're dealing with, and let's knock them out. Right, so I try to go into strategy mode.
cool. Cool, thank you.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, Elijah, my dogs are going bonkers. Not sure if you can hear that or not.
Yeah.
Airbnb, we see all kinds of dogs running around here. That's kind of what's going on in our world.
Where are you
but-
guys staying at?
We're like a mile down the street. We're doing a home renovation, so
Oh, nice.
for 2 months we're like living out of suitcases is what it feels like. We're ready to go home, but we find out, it's delayed. Go figure, right? A little bit of a
Yeah.
delay. But we appreciate you being on the call, Elijah. I hope a lot of our people harass you at NatCon in Dallas. You're going to be just at the B2B res one. You're not going to be at retail, I assume.
Yeah, just B2B.
Okay, got it. But we'll see you in Dallas, and I appreciate you dropping loads of wisdom on us here today. It's fantastic. Thank you so much.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it. Thanks for having
Hey.
me. Take care.
See you guys.